Hi, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I read on my computer screen that there's some terror with regarding to going into being. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I've been trying for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been maybe 15 years. And
Yeah.
I can't seem to get by the terror. And so then I go back to whatever I was doing to go at least partially unconscious. I try and stay sort of halfway. But when I really let go, the terror is just, I feel eclipsed by it. And then I think, okay, that's all right. But then it just keeps lasting, terror. And I don't know. It gets to the point where I start to feel debilitated and I don't know what to do.
Sure. Do you know, I've met a lot of people that have those really strong sort of reaction to this. We all have our own makeup. We all have our own sort of history. You never know the many influences that get sort of triggered as we sort of really, as we really open. I think my experience is that there's an awful lot of people, probably the majority, it's more pronounced than others, but it's really common to have some association really deep in consciousness with, it's almost like if I really open, if I really let go, that there's often this association with sort of a dangerous vulnerability. If I really let go, then something, there's just, often it's not defined, but there's this sense of something, terrible is going to happen. Whether it's, I'll die, or for some people I'll go insane, or, everybody has their own favorite way of terrorizing themselves. But when you feel that terror, because fear and being terrified, it's in a sense it's feeling really threatened, isn't it?
Yeah, I kind of feel in a way like I'm just right in front of this like saber-toothed tiger just a second before I'm about to be like devoured. But then that actually never happens, and I keep staying in that 1 second.
Yeah. So what precipitates that terror? So what do you do? What are you doing internally that gets you to that point where it all of a sudden starts to become frightening?
I just completely surrender. I just completely give up to everything that doesn't feel like it's coming organically from me. And then I start to slowly try and build my life from that place. And then I hit that wall of terror. Yeah. Then I just stay with it because I figure there is nothing else. I keep going back to the other way. It's always a dead end the other way.
Yeah.
But then I personally, I didn't have I had a terrible childhood, really.
Yeah.
So I get stuck there, and I don't know what. I just keep trying to feel it, and then I cry, and I'm grieving, and I say, okay, that's fine, cry and grieve. And by this time, any friends I've made in the last little period of time since I've tried all disappear. And then I think, okay, that's okay too.
Yeah, that has its own pain associated with it too.
Yeah, that's hard too. You wish you had support, but
Of course. All right, well, I think there's kind of two things that I really want to say.
All right.
Is number one, I think you already probably know this, but I just want to reiterate it and just also give voice to it for all the people that are listening, is that, I don't even know. I'm just going to use a phrase, your average person, but I have no idea what your average person is. But I don't know whatever phrase to use. So your average person, let's say, who kind of got through life, without too many traumatic instances happening, when they kind of touch into this sort of real, this core of emptiness really is what it is, at the very center of the ego structure, they will often feel really afraid and even somewhat terrified. Now, that's for somebody who's had, a relatively okay time of it. For those, which are many, 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 for those which have not had such an easy time with it, which have had, very difficult past or traumatic past, you take that same sort of fear and terror and you just multiply it by 10, and that's what you're dealing with. So first of all, just know that what you're experiencing, it's a really high level of fear. And I know just from what you said to me, that you sort of try to have compassion with it. But so, as I said, there's two things I really want to convey. One is often it's not it can be useful to become more familiar with the fear than just experiencing it. Because, you hear in spirituality, someone's terrified, they're opening to the void, and often what they hear is just leap in, open to the terror, open to the fear. But if you've had a background that has been terrorizing in some sense, all that ends up doing is locking the fear more and more and more into your system. So it's really important to know, kind of wise means. What works for somebody can actually be, what's medicine for some person can actually be poison for another. So, for you to just throw yourself wide open to your terror and fear, while for some people that may really work, for you, it's not really. It obviously hasn't really worked in terms of finding its resolution. Right?
No, not so far. I keep thinking I might get a little more accustomed to it slowly but surely, but not so far.
Yeah, it's not the right medicine for you, and the reason is because if you only encounter it experientially, just experience the terror, your system, because it has been terrorized, it's just like spinning. It can't find a reference for something other than the terror. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right. So
exactly.
So your experience is, even though your experience in my experience being with lots of people, your experience is not uncommon at all. But your experience, like so many others, is not like everybody else's, experience, where they can open to the terror and they can move through it and it releases and it's a wonderful thing. You and hundreds, millions, tens of millions of people like you open to the terror, and what you end up being is terrorized by the terror.
So then how can I...
That's the question.
How can I be my true being? It's very frustrating because there's nothing left to be anymore for me. On the other side, it all is so tinny and weird and fake. I'm I feel stuck between, a rock and a hard place. Yeah. Neither one is.
I sympathize. I do.
Oh.
I know. I understand. And I'm not saying there's nothing you can do, because there is.
Oh, good.
There really is. And these two things seem totally paradoxical. Okay, so we'll take the first one, which is, just imagine that this whole, the terror and the fear that arises, when you feel like you're getting close to some experience of being, imagine that even though the experience is very, very real, and the intuition says, I really need to kind of go through this, right? If I could just go through this, if I could just surrender into it, right? And so there you are. Imagine you have a dream tonight, and you're right there, like at some edge, and you're at the edge, and you're terrified, and you're really caught up in fear, but something tells you, I have to let go, I have to surrender into this, I have to move through this, right? And you keep trying to do that in your dream, and you just keep cycling back to the same place and the same place and the same place and the same place, right? And just imagine that after you've cycled back in your dream, you all of a sudden get just a little, very simple insight, which is, I'm assuming that I have to go through something, anything, in this case fear. I'm assuming that I have to go through this, or surrender to it in order to be free. And that assumption is part of my dream. You follow me?
Yeah, I do. It's just the only stories I've ever heard or people went through this.
I understand.
Terror.
I understand. People do, and it can work that way. But even people that do go through terror and surrender to it, what they're really surrendering to, they're surrendering to a dream state anyway. Someone's sitting in a bedroom, they're sitting at a retreat site, whatever, they're experiencing great terror, but actually nothing's happening, is it?
I'm laughing because there's so many sirens going by. Right
I can hear them in the background.
It's like the terror thing, but anyway, yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
So when I say that nothing's happening, I don't mean to denigrate, the actual feeling of the terror. I'm just saying that, wow, there is the possibility, because I've seen it with people, I've had it happen to myself, where the mind will sort of make up this whole thing that it really believes needs to happen. This is very necessary. I need to surrender into this terror. I need to let go into this terror. And you get yourself all focused on that, and then all of a sudden a little insight can come and go, wait a minute, maybe that's not even true. Maybe I'm setting up this entire scenario this dramatic scenario that I'm convinced has to happen, and how do I know that it even needs to happen? Maybe that's just part of what my mind is dreaming up. Maybe. So can you see if you just either at least open to that as a possibility?
Oh, yeah.
That all of a sudden, it's like lots of possibilities open up. It's like, oh, if I don't have to be obsessed with doing that, if that doesn't have to be the doorway for me, because who says it has to be the doorway? It's my mind that tells me it has to be the doorway.
I thought that because I actually did go through trauma that I can't even really explain it to most people because they actually don't have a reference point for the kind of trauma I went through with my primary caregivers, and I'm okay with that. I don't feel like I have to go over and over it or anything. It's just that the thing is that I wonder sometimes, do I have to not only do I hear it in people's awakening stories that they have this barrier of terror, but that I wonder, because of that trauma I went through, is that something I have to somehow face or whatever? And I'm so tired and bored of all of it in a way.
Yeah, I understand. I absolutely do. I know because I talk to people all the time. They've gone through tons of therapy, tons of trauma therapy.
Exactly.
And sometimes, it's really if it really works for somebody, then absolutely lovely, wonderful. But also, there's also sort of, a whole group of people who have gone through all of that and they've really dedicated themselves to it. And at the end of the day, they're just like, good Lord.
That's me.
It's still here. And do I just have to keep going through doing the same things that don't actually work? You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is, number one, I'm not trying to push your experience under the carpet, but I'm just saying that, okay, maybe your system has been, what would they say? Well, it's certainly sensitized, right? Deeply. And so, okay, that's your system. You got, I've got, and I don't equate what I'm going to say to what you're experiencing, but, okay, I raced bikes for a lot of times and probably crashed a couple hundred times. I got scars all over my body from crashing. Do all my scars got to go away for anything to happen? No, it's part of my past. It's part of what happened to this body. There's consequences for it and whatever. But sometimes our society can convince us that we have to kind of clean the slate before we can move on with something. And what I'm saying is, it's not necessarily true. It's just not necessarily true. Your being, as we're just sitting here talking, it's your being that's just effortlessly, conscious of what we're both, of my words and your words. That's the being. It's just there. It's, it's not something you can grasp and touch and hold, but you don't have to go through something for that being to be there or even to present itself to you. That becomes its own belief system, you see? And what would you be without that belief system? That something has to happen, that I have to go through anything in order for me to realize my being.
Well, that's true, but if I let go of this whole idea of terror, which I can let go of with your suggestion, then the other thing is that I spend a lot of time grieving and crying and crying and crying and crying. It's amazing. I'm like a big lake walking around. And I just let myself cry and I don't know, I just wonder when. I'm not wondering when I'm going to have this beautiful, heavenly existence. I'm not wondering that at all. I'm just wondering when I can be more effective and more peaceful. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah. I know. See, what I'm trying to just sort of nudge you a little closer to is that freedom, that openness, that freedom is, how can we say, the capacity, the openness, the space for that you are happy in, that you're sad in, that you cry in, that you're terrified in, that you're thrilled in, that you're in a state of deep peace in. That openness, that capacity has been with you all along. Now, how long, you will cry, how long your body will, a lot of tears are one of our body's most effective ways of purifying itself, if we can just let it sort of deeply happen.
I do. I let it. It doesn't hardly even matter if I'm in front of people or not anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, practically speaking, occasionally I can't do it in front of people, but a lot of times I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's part of a healing process. I can't tell you how long it will go on. What if it went on forever?
Forever?
Yeah, just what if? Just play a game with me. What if like the fear and the crying and stuff, just imagine. We both know nothing lasts forever. Everything's transient. But let's just imagine none of it would change forever. 100,000 lifetimes it'd still be that way. Forever. Okay? Imagine if you got this information. My dear, this stuff will be here forever. Right? Now, to resist it wouldn't even make sense then, because it's not going to change anything, right? Forever's a long time. So, but if you just contemplated forever, because this is just a game we're playing, right? I'm not saying it's going to be this way. But if you just contemplate it, if I knew with certainty that I was going to be having these experiences forever, what would I do?
Oh, I would want to leave.
Yeah, but it wouldn't matter. No matter where you go, you'll have these experiences forever.
Oh, I see.
You see, there's no getting out of it.
Oh, okay.
There's no getting out of it.
Oh, then you just do it, and you just do it, and you don't.
I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
Oh, okay.
It's actually a much deeper question than you may imagine. Because if it would last for absolutely ever, then what would happen was you would quite naturally, there would be a way that you would almost spontaneously shift your orientation with it, your relationship with it.
You would get like cozy with it, maybe.
I'm just passing on something my teacher passed on to me, by the way. When I was, complaining about, after some years of meditation, not being able to control my noisy mind in meditation, and my teacher simply said, if you go to war with your mind, you'll be at war forever. And that was it. And the bell was rung, which means you're dismissed, get out of the room. And I was literally walking back along the road from where I met in the meditation hall, and I just thought, forever. Forever's a long time. And in that instant, I realized it's not my thoughts that are the problem. It's the way I'm relating to them. It's not my experience that's actually the problem. It's how I'm relating to it. I'm still at war with it. I'm in a subtle, either overt or a subtle way of, waiting for something to change. And the waiting for something to change is that kind of resistance. It keeps you locked to it.
Yeah, I feel now that I'm 50, I feel like, should have attained.
Yeah. Oh, bless your heart.
A little bit of peace by now. I just kind of covert.
Yeah. Yeah. But see, it's the relationship with all this. It's just the relationship with your fear.
I see.
And to the mind, like the ego, it sounds devastating. Like, oh my God, forever. Oh, I would just, But if you touch into that deeper place, all of a sudden it's like, wow, I would have to relate to this completely different. And how would that be? And as soon as you relate to it different, all of a sudden it doesn't hold you anymore. It doesn't confine you. Play with it a little bit, will you?
Yeah.
And then call me up next week or write me an email. I really want to know how this goes for you.
Okay.
I really want to know.
All right.
And just see just sort of play with it, and just imagine that our minds sort of set up to, when we have lots of fear or terror, that it sets it up as a scenario where something needs to change. I have to totally surrender. I have to go through this big thing in order to awaken, right? Imagine that whole orientation was an assumption that wasn't actually true. That nothing actually had to happen. Imagine you don't even have to let go. Because letting go can be a really good means of holding on, I'm trying to let go. I'm trying, right? Well, stop trying to let go. It just short circuits it.
Okay, yeah. I like the part about my relationship with it a lot.
That's what I'm trying to help you shift.
Yeah.
I'm just trying these different little means to try to help shift the relationship with it, because that is what it is about.
Yeah.
Because, God bless your system, the fear may or may not be with you for this life. And, so, a lot of times you go, oh my God, don't tell me that. I don't know. But, if it was, you would start to go, my God, I got to come up with a different relationship, because this one I have isn't working very well.
Exactly, I understand.
I'm trying to therapize it away. I'm trying to spiritualize it away. I'm trying to let go of it away. I'm trying to do all those things to make it go away. Maybe I could actually have a totally different relationship with it, something other than waiting for it to go away. Maybe it doesn't need to go away. Okay, dear.
Okay, thank you.
It was lovely to talk with you.
You too, thank you.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.